Hey everybody, and welcome to the live show. Pushed it off one day, usually do it on Sunday at this time, but moved it to Monday as we head into the holidays. It's busy, lots of dinners and events to go to. So my goal is to be here next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, and the following Sunday for live shows. But yeah, it's just before Christmas and just before New Year's, so you know, sometimes things happen and I can't be sitting here at that exact time. But if I'm around and I'm not hungover, I will be here doing the live show. So you might have seen this in the last one. I got this great map. This was given to me by my mother-in-law and her partner Phil, and it's such a cool thing. And the reason they actually had this made for me, so it's a map laminated with a frame around it. And you see all the pins in there. So they gave me a box of 80 pins, and I used them all up. I have one left. And so what this is for is to put on the map all the places I've been in the world. So just came back from driving the e-tron in Abu Dhabi. So I'll find Abu Dhabi on the map. Where is it? Down here, and I'll stick a pin in it. There we go. So that one's in there. So yeah, been to Australia, been to Chile, been to Japan, been to China, been all over North America, and now I've been to the Middle East. So that was really cool to be there for the very first time. All right, so let's get into the questions and answers and see what everybody has to say. Wrench Dozer says, I enjoy your review of the Audi e-tron. Those side mirrors display look interesting. So if you haven't watched the video, it just went up yesterday, but on the side here, instead of having regular mirrors on the stalks, they have cameras, and the cameras then project an image onto these small screens in the top of the doors, like typically where the handle is up there. There's a very high definition screen on the driver and the passenger side. I didn't love it, I got to tell you. I drove the car all day, and it's just not second nature to look there instead of out the window at the regular mirror. Plus, the interesting thing is the focal length is different. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to drive. Cadillac was the first one to have it with the mirror that you flicked a switch and it turned into a monitor. The thing is, when you look at a mirror, you're actually looking back through the back of the car. So your focal length is in the distance. When you click it and turn it into a screen, then your focal distance goes from far away to this close. And it's the same with the mirrors. So on the side. So didn't love it. It wasn't second nature. Now I'd have to give it, a week or so, but yeah, it wasn't my thing. It looks cool. And what it was done for was to reduce aerodynamic drag. And when you drive a car and you have the radio off, excuse me, and you're driving on the highway, most of the wind noise you hear is from the side mirror. So that eliminates pretty much all the sound. All right, let's get into the questions here. I live in Winnipeg, and I'm wondering if you knew the percentage of battery loss for EVs experienced during winter weather. If I park outdoors during regular office hours, have a wonderful holiday season. Same to you. I hear it's about 20%. Now, don't quote me on that 100%, but right around 20%. But there is absolutely battery degradation. For some of the more expensive SUVs like Tesla and this new e-tron, and I'm sure Porsche will have it as well, thermal management. They actually have a heating and cooling system, and when the car is plugged in, and it's plugged in, if yours isn't plugged in, then, excuse me, for sure it could be affected. But yeah, that is one way of getting around it, is having thermal management. I read on Edmunds that the 19 Acura RDX has been having quality issues, especially with the transmission. Thoughts? Well, it's a new 10-speed. It's being used in the turbo version of the Honda Accord as well. Every time I start this live chat, I start to cough. But anyway. So what I would suggest you do is have a look at other sources. I would even go onto some web forums for those two particular cars to see what's happening. Now, this is a brand new transmission. It is a Honda or Acura in-house unit. It isn't like the 9-speed ZF unit. But whenever you have any brand new technology, there can be issues, and maybe they're suffering from that. That is research you found. I haven't seen it myself. Jorge says, hello from Westchester County, New York. Thanks for being here. Kane says, Merry Christmas, same to you too. Hey Zach, contemplating buying a Toyota CHR. Do you have any feedback or driven one? Well, Mo, have you showed up on the right day, my friend? Guess what I picked up just this morning? A CHR. And I can tell you because I did, if you go and onto the channel and search Toyota CHR, I did a review of the initial launch in Quebec. Now, the shortcomings of the initial CHR, a lot of them have been addressed with the 2019 update, and most of them centered around the head unit. There was no navigation, there was no Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, there was no backup camera in the head unit. It was a tiny little one in the rear view mirror. So they've put a proper head unit in there. It does have Apple CarPlay. It does not have Android Auto, but yes, they've updated it. So I have this car all the way through until January 2nd, and sometime during the holidays, I'll steal away for a little while and do a quick video on it, mostly talking about the updates. But yeah, I do like the CHR. For a single person or a couple, you do not want it for kids. The rear door handles are in a very awkward position. They're very high. Kids won't be able to open them. And when you sit inside, the doors are like this. You have these little windows out the side. So check back. I will have a video on that in the next few weeks. Okay. Hello from Victoria. Have you tested the BMW 3 Series? No. These cars have just been introduced. They had a ride and drive in Portugal last week, not last week, the week before. So those are the first people in the world to drive it. So no, it is not out yet. I sent an email, before you keep asking about the same cars, I sent an email to BMW this morning about the new X5. When is it going to be available for me to drive? So I haven't received a reply from them yet. As soon as the car is here, I will do a review on it. Same thing for the 3 Series from BMW. Having you driven the new Mazda 3? No, the car was just shown at the LA Auto Show a week or so ago. So no, I haven't driven it yet. Any news on when the Q3 is coming to Canada? It is going to be here the second quarter, they say, of 2019. So think late spring, early summer is when it's coming. 2019 RAV4 or Mitsubishi PHEV, which is a better all-rounder? Well, they're not exactly the same. Like if you look at the RAV4 hybrid and you look at the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, one is a very different product from the other. One is just a conventional Toyota hybrid, which by the way is fantastic. They have got that absolutely nailed, absolutely bulletproof. It's going to do what you want year after year after year, and you're going to get amazing resale value for it and great fuel economy. The PHEV from Mitsubishi is the best-selling plug-in hybrid vehicle in the world. In Canada, where I live, they are going to sell probably close to 6,000 of those. It's only been on sale for this year, for 2018. They will sell about 6,000 of those PHEVs. Now, in the Canadian market, that is a lot of one particular very unique one model. And the fact it comes from a very small brand like Mitsubishi proves that there is an appetite for a plug-in electric utility. It is the only plug-in electric vehicle in its class, meaning if you want to get a plug-in electric SUV, you have to basically go to the premium brands, okay? So the fact that it's the one and only is really quite good. It's interesting. I was driving to the e-tron event, and there was a colleague from a major newspaper, Global Mail, that was joining me on the trip, and I was talking about the Mitsubishi PHEV, and I said, oh, it's actually a very good product. And he turned his nose up and laughed and said, oh, come on, it's a piece of junk. And I said, have you driven it? And his answer was no. And I said, well, how can you say such a stupid thing when you actually haven't even driven the car? I said, it is very good. I drove the gas one and the PHEV back to back, and the PHEV is fantastic. Sure, it's an older platform and it's an older interior, but if you just look at the technology of that PHEV, man, they have got some really good technology in there. So one is a plug-in, one isn't. I suggest you drive them both and pick the one you like. Bakar says, Merry Christmas, same to you. Do you think that the new Q3's interior is similar to the 2019 Jetta? Well, what you're seeing in the Volkswagen Group is, of course, shared technology, platform sharing. So you're getting the digital cockpit or dashboard, depending on which brand, they'll call it a different name, big screen with a flat panel on it. We see that with this car as well. So yeah, you could say that there's similarities, but when you get in the Q3, the level of materials and finish is up a different level, okay? It isn't the same as the Jetta. And then when you drive it, it feels different as well. The one thing about the Jetta, it has a torsion beam rear suspension. Of course, the Q3 has independent rear suspension, and that does make a bit of a difference. So there you go. I suggest when it comes, you check them out. But the Jetta is great, by the way, for the price. It's pretty killer for what they're charging for that car. Abshik Manon says, I'm only interested in electric all-wheel drive under 50,000. Is there something in that range, or do I have to settle with a hybrid? So I'm not sure if you're looking for utility or not. All-wheel drive under $50,000. Well, here's the thing is the Kona electric front-wheel drive. That's one of the things you're going to start to see as these vehicles that are coming in are front-wheel drive only. They look like utility vehicles, but they're not really. They're not all-wheel drive. That's one of the things about the PHEV from Mitsubishi. It is exactly the same size as the Outlander, which is kind of on the bigger side of the compact class. It has all of the same interior volume as the gasoline version. It actually drives in many ways better than the gasoline version because you got that low-end torque. And it's under $50,000. So there you go. That's probably your answer is the PHEV. Starting at around, I think in the Canadian market, around 43 grand. Bakar says, which is better, e-tron or I-Pace? Haven't got the I-Pace yet, but I will let you know. E-tron's bigger. That's one thing I will tell you. And the one thing you have to look at, the Audi, what Audi does particularly well is design. I mentioned that. I suggest you watch the video, and I hope you have seen it already. But exterior design, interior design, it's pretty hard to beat. Like, I mean, their quality is right up there when it comes to fit and finish and materials. Jaguar not really on the same level of the interior of their cars. If you look at the F-Pace, it's kind of cheap and cheerful. Now, I haven't driven the I-Pace, so I can't really comment on it. But I would suggest historically that Audi probably has the lead there. But I have to wait until I drive that car. Mike says, could you make a comment on the problems Honda's having with the CR-V 1.5 liter turbo with gas getting into it? Well, this has been talked about a lot here on the live chat. Yeah, it is an issue. Honda seems to know about it, but isn't doing really much about it. Apparently there was a recall in China for these cars. It's known to be a cold weather issue, northern United States, and of course here in Canada. And from what I'm hearing, it's not all of them, which makes you believe that it's probably not an engineering issue. It's more of a mechanical issue, meaning maybe some of the source materials or what was put into the engines initially wasn't up to scratch, and it could be a recall on a particular flight of cars. So I don't really know anything other than that. This is an issue. Honda's going to have to get ahead of this because, as I've said before, when you watch blogs like this or vlogs like this, you are the people each and every week that come and watch these. You are the influencers in your family. When I was a kid growing up, I read, and back in those days, there was no YouTube. There was some TV. There was Driver's Seat, as you might remember that show way back on CBC. And there was car magazines, and I read everything when I was a kid. All Road and Track and Car and Driver and all that kind of stuff. So I was the car enthusiast who distilled that information for other members of my family. So when my aunt was buying a car, somebody in the family was buying the car, I was kind of like the car expert in the family. And the people that watch this, you're interested in cars. You spread that information through your friends and colleagues and aunts and uncles and what have you. So if this issue gets out into the public and you start hearing about it and your aunt says to you, hey, I'm thinking about buying a CR-V, and you're like, well, there's this issue. Should you buy it? Shouldn't you buy it? I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but there's going to be question marks. So Honda has to get ahead of this. I haven't heard them getting ahead of it, but if this becomes really common knowledge for a lot of people, it could affect sales. So we'll have to wait and see. Richard says, can you use non-metric numbers in your reviews? No. The world is metric. The United States is not. The rest of the world is metric. It really isn't that hard. If you really need to, here, I'll show you. Watch this. I have my phone. So it's really not that hard. If I say something in metric, you can find it in miles. Watch this. How much is 120 kilometers an hour in miles?
Here is information from calculateme.com.
You can find it. It'll tell you. 120 kilometers is 74.6 miles per hour. Not that hard. United States, we love you, but come on, metric. The rest of the world is on metric. Get with it. Now, Canada isn't 100% metric, but we're much closer than the US. Ryan says, welcome back, Zach. Which vehicle do you aspire to own one day? It's real easy. Actually, I don't have a picture here, but I walked by. I spotted the spotted owl in the wild. I was walking my dog with my wife, not today, but yesterday, and there it was, the beautiful Porsche 911 Silhouette. Not the color I would have chosen. It's Carrera white. Carrera white 911 GT3 Touring. Bam! How do you like me now? So the GT3, but without the big gaudy wing on the back, just the regular 911 Silhouette. And there it is, 500 horsepower, 9,000 RPM. That's my car. Maybe one day. I like the rear view camera built into the Tacoma mirror. Gives you the cam and the mirror together. So is that the one you mean when you put it into reverse? You get the tiny little reversing camera. I think that's tiny. I think it's like, why bother? I disagree with you. If you're talking about the one where you have the mirror and then you flick the switch and you then turns into a monitor, that's kind of different. But the little tiny thing, you like that? I don't like that. What are your thoughts on emission tax and the development of electric vehicles in the long run in Canada? Will there be laws by forcing hybrid or full electric vehicles in 5 years? No, there's no appetite for that. And look at the big hubbub going on around the carbon tax. So for those of you not following Canadian politics, and that's a lot of you, there's a proposed carbon tax, or the federal government has said in jurisdictions where there isn't a carbon tax, the federal government will impose a carbon tax. And there's been a huge fight about this. Now, I live in a jurisdiction, British Columbia, the very first jurisdiction in North America to have a carbon tax. We've had one for the better part of 10 years. And I'm here to tell you, it hasn't changed anything except drive up the costs. Carbon taxes raise the cost, and there's study after study in the province of British Columbia that shows that it hasn't reduced anything in terms of consumption. All it's done is jacked up the price of gasoline, hydroelectricity, and fuel for your home. For example, the lights that are on here in the province of British Columbia, do you know where the electricity comes from? It comes from hydroelectric dams. There is zero carbon emitted by making the electricity that you're seeing here today. But my electric bill has gone up about 100% in the last 5 years. So I think that there are other ways to get people to make changes. I think there should be kinds of tax credits for making homes more efficient, the way we did in the 70s. There should be, there's one way to do it, which is to maybe put a tax on the size or displacement of your engine that you're using. And you see that throughout the world, especially in Europe, and people drive much smaller cars. So we could be here just doing a whole show on carbon and taxes, but I'm here to tell you, living in a jurisdiction that has had the first carbon tax in North America for the longest, it just makes life more expensive. Van City 604, I live in Vancouver and I'm noticing more BME e-tron vehicles. I'm not sure what that looks like a 3 Series sedan. I'm not sure what that BME e-tron is. I don't think I know what that is. Richard says, I own 2 townhomes in Tremblant, love Canada. Well, Richard, if you're coming up to Canada all the time, learn the metric system, man. We should have beers at your townhouse in Tremblant with a big fire going in the winter, and we'll teach you metric in no time. It's all divisible by 10. Really simple. So Van City 604, right back. Not sure what you mean. Do you believe the future SUV will have a decline, say in 30 years? Well, it could happen, but not the way that it's going when it comes to gasoline and fuel, because now the world is awash with more fuel than ever. You know, it wasn't 10 years ago where everybody was saying we're running out of oil. Well, maybe one day, but not in the near future. A lot of people living outside of Canada don't realize that Canada has either the second or the third largest oil reserves in the world, enough to last the world for over 100 years, and it's not being developed to its extent, the extent it could today. There's been all kinds of fracking in the United States. Now the United States is one of the largest oil producers in the world. You still have the Saudis and all of these other places where they're able to extract more oil than they thought they could in the past because of new technologies. So if we continue on this cheap fuel front for the foreseeable future, no, SUVs are going to be here for a long time. But then layering in on top of that, there is going to be mild hybridization of these vehicles. There's going to be small batteries that are going to be able to take the pressure off the internal combustion engine and reduce fuel costs. So even though vehicles are bigger over the last 10 years, a lot of them become much more fuel efficient. But tastes are tastes. People want utilities. I don't see it changing a ton in the future, but who really knows? Like 30 years ago, no one could have predicted what we're driving today. So what we're going to drive in 30 years, I don't think anybody can predict either. All I can tell you is people love utility style vehicles. Charlottetown Spud, he's asking, just curious how the Volkswagen Golf R DSG performs. You mentioned that not that great at low speeds in reviews. It would scare me off buying one. Now, don't be scared, Charlottetown Spud, and thanks for being back here from the East Coast. We're having some French fries tonight, Charlottetown Spud. They're probably from Prince Edward Island too. The best. So the DSG that I drove with the Golf R review that I did less than a year ago, they switched from a 6-speed to a 7-speed DSG. And then I drove back-to-back the GTI with the old 6-speed. And I found the 6-speed was much smoother. The 7-speed I noticed was jerkier. And the comments, I mean, people crapped all over me. You're a moron. You don't know how to drive. It's like you know, I don't drive anything. I only drive like 100 cars a year. So no, I got my head up my ass. I know that. But no, there was definitely some low-speed drivability issues. Now, this was the first sort of batch of these 7-speeds. So please do yourself a favor and see if you can get your hands on one to test drive it, because it could have just been that particular car. The 6-speed is fantastic. The 7-speed I did have issues with, but see if you can drive one. It might have just been because it was a very early version of this car. And it was purple. And boy, if you want to get attention, drive a purple Golf R. Juan says, happy holidays, Zach. Any thoughts on the Honda Passport? Well, they're just taking the SUV pie and slicing another slice in there. You know, Honda's smart. Listen, they have vehicles that people want to buy. They seem to love the Pilot. The Passport's going to be a little smaller. I think it, like, I've been trying to find this out, but I think to me, it looks like the Ridgeline with the back on it. Like take the Ridgeline, Honda Ridgeline, and make it into SUV. I think that's what it is. So we'll have to wait and see until we get a chance to drive it. But yeah, I think there's very little information on the car right now, but we'll have to wait and see. Mike says, I currently drive a 2005 Explorer. Going to the cottage, you need a rooftop or 3 kids and a large dog. You want to put the kids and the dog up there? Cool. Thinking of going big, like an Excursion. Thoughts? I know it's old. An Excursion diesel. Well, here's the thing. This is a 13-year-old car now, okay? So 13-year-old anything starts to show wear. What you need to do is find out what you're buying with a 13-year-old car is the previous owner, okay? So you need to do your due diligence. You need to get a Carfax. Used to be called CarProof in Canada. It's now changed the name to Carfax. You need to get it inspected by a mechanic. You need to do your due diligence, please. And what I would also do is go on F-150 diesel forums and also Excursion diesel forums, because there's obviously it's a platform share there. It's really an F-150 made into an SUV. Excuse me. So that's what I would do. But you have to do your due diligence on a 13-year-old car, soon to be 14-year-old car, because we're heading into a new year. So you're buying somebody's maintenance and have they looked after it. Other than that, yeah, if you're looking for a bigger vehicle and you don't want to spend a lot, another one you might want to look at, maybe a little bit more reliable in the long run, is say like a Toyota Sequoia. That might be an option. Jazz says, is there any better value proposition than a 997 Turbo as a daily driver? Well, I don't think you put value and 997 Turbo in the same sentence, other than, you know, good resale value. But yeah, who's kidding who? Who wouldn't like a 911 Turbo as a daily driver? I think that the 997.2, so the '09 and newer, 997 Turbo is the sweet spot for collectability because they made updates obviously to the interior of the car, and I think that that was the last generation of the manual. So if you could find a 997.2 turbo manual, last of that, now that is a cool car. Kellington Link says, welcome back. Was Abu Dhabi's car culture and architecture as impressive as we've been told? I got to tell you, okay, here's what happened. I left for Abu Dhabi on Monday, flew to Toronto, then flew overnight to London Heathrow, and then flew from Heathrow to Abu Dhabi, getting in at around 8 o'clock, getting out of the airport into a van, going to the hotel, got there at around 9, had a quick bite to eat, and then went to bed, got up in the morning. We drove the car for a few hours and then went to the zoo, which is where they had the lunch stop, and then got to drive the car a few more hours in the afternoon, went to the hotel, had dinner, went to the airport and flew home. Okay, so really, actual time on the ground, driving the car was maybe 4 or 5 hours, but I didn't see any really cool cars. To be honest with you, there were more cool cars in Vancouver than I saw in Abu Dhabi. Architecture is pretty impressive. When they build something and everything there is new, they make it bigger and better than anything else. So the hotels were beautiful. I got to tell you that the hotels we stayed at 2 different hotels. We stayed at the Etihad Tower, the big fancy hotel you see if you look at the Abu Dhabi skyline. Very unique looking building. We stayed there and had dinner and then went to the airport. But really didn't get to see a whole lot in about 25 hours. Nicholas says, would you own an EV one day? Where's your family on this matter? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what we did. We bought a diesel. We have owned a diesel in the past, and we bought another diesel. We have a Porsche Cayenne diesel, and the idea behind buying this one was to keep it long term. I love the Cayenne. Regular viewers know that, and I also love diesel. And the thing is that we would be perfect candidates for an electric car, because we live right in the heart of the city of Vancouver. So I live in a house, but I'm the first neighborhood outside of downtown Vancouver. So where we drive most times is 5-10 minutes in any direction, and every once in a while, my wife has to drive me to pick up and drop off cars, and that's really only about 20-25 minutes in any direction, and that would be perfect for an electric car. But here's the thing. I live in an old neighborhood. My house is almost 100 years old. If I wanted to get charging infrastructure, I'd have to build a new garage in the back and all this kind of, it would cost me about $30,000 to put all of that into this existing situation. So for me, it doesn't make sense. If you live in the suburbs and you have a nice big 2 or 3 car garage and it's attached to the house and the electricity's already in there and you can upgrade your panel and get a plug put in and all that kind of stuff, yeah, knock yourself out. But for me, I can't run a cord across the sidewalk to the front of the house, which is where the car is parked now. So it doesn't make sense for me. And plus I love diesels, so I'm going to keep that long term. But yeah, a little electric car, if we could figure out a way to get it plugged in easily and change everything in the back of the house, then maybe I consider it, but it doesn't work for me. Should I buy a Hyundai Tucson with a turbo or a 2016 Sportage? Well, both of them are available with the turbo engine, the 1.6 liter. I think the Tucson, I'm trying to remember, was the Sportage? Oh, on the top of my head. Anyway, the Tucson, the 1.6 liter turbo with the dual clutch, pretty nice. So I would start there and see what you think. Had any experience with the Range Rover plug-in hybrid? No. Here in Ireland, we all drive Toyota twin cams. Well, there's an Irish name for you. Michael Murphy. Welcome to the show. Okay, here's somebody following up without knowing it. How will I charge my EV if I live in an apartment in Vancouver and my apartment doesn't have a charger in the parking lot? Well, what you're going to have to do is use, if you really, really want to make the commitment, is to get electric charging infrastructure near home, like a public one. And the best is if you have it at work, because you're at work for, hopefully 8 hours, and that would definitely be great. But if you don't have that, then that's not for you. Maybe just a hybrid vehicle. And here's the thing is, a lot of people are going to be overbuying when they head into this electric step. Most people don't need 300 miles or 400 plus kilometers of range. You don't. Most of your driving is what I'm talking about, a little bit here and there. Maybe you drive 80 kilometers a day or around 40 or 50 miles. You don't need to buy 400 or kilometers or 300 miles of range. You don't need that, but everybody thinks they need that. Most people, to reduce your input in the impact into the environment and to get good mileage and save money right away, is just to buy a hybrid car. And there's tons of good hybrids from all kinds of brands. It doesn't need to be a Toyota. The Honda Accord, the Insider, both good hybrids. Hyundai makes some, the Ioniq hybrid is fantastic. So yeah, I think that most people, a hybrid car would do the trick, especially if you don't have charging infrastructure. And by the way, back to the car I have, I'm actually really thinking about, not a first car for my kids, because you're not going to get them a new car. They're going to bang into things, obviously, but they're going to start driving in the next little while. I was thinking of like a little Toyota Prius C, like the small Prius would be a perfect car to run around the city and save money on fuel and have little impact on the environment. So that's one way to go. What do you think of the Mazda 6 GT? I think that the Mazda 6 is a great product. I always have, and I've always said it's the best car that nobody buys. It's always had a focus on handling. It's always had a focus on a high quality interior. It's a great product. Are you talking about the turbo? The turbo, here's the thing about the turbo engine that Mazda's offering, and you see it in the CX-9. It doesn't react like a lot of other turbos because it is a low compression. Sorry, I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, low compression diesel. So I'm getting my things mixed up. I'm thinking of their diesel. I got to start again. It is a high compression engine, which acts more like a diesel. So you get most of the torque and power in the lower to mid-range RPM, not like a lot of turbocharged engines which have a lot of power and a lot of free revving up at higher RPMs. It feels and it drives more like a diesel engine. You get that bottom end grunt and that mid-range torque, which is what people find satisfying. So that's the difference with their engine. I got the terminology mixed up. It feels like a diesel, it isn't. But that's my best way to describe it. What do you think of the 19 Mercedes C43 wagon? Mercedes is bringing this. It's quite exciting. I think Audi should bring the RS4 Avant. Yeah, the Mercedes-Benz C-Wagon is only available in Canada. And the fact that they're bringing out the C43 is great. It's a beautiful car. And it's one of those cars that is pretty damn cool if you own one, because you're not going to see a lot of people. Everybody's going right to the GLC or right to the GLE. Everybody wants a utility vehicle. But the fact there are still some low, sporty, beautiful looking wagons available, and now with more powerful engines, oh yeah, that is a very cool car. I have said this many, many times. One of my favorite cars, and that's, somebody asked earlier, like, what's a car you would like to have? Of course, the 911 GT3 is like #1, but a really stealthy, cool looking family car would be the E63S wagon. Take the badges off it. That is the sportiest SUV on the road, is that car. Let me keep going here. Have you ever seen or reviewed an older Mini? Yeah, for Driving Television, which is the show that I host across the country here in Canada, when we started the show, we did a classic car segment. I got to drive a lot of really cool cars back then, but yeah, I've driven older Minis. They're really cool. So much fun. Your ass is this far off the ground. Even though you're not going that fast, you're like, it's like a go-kart. Like everybody says, like a go-kart. It is like a go-kart. Which infotainment system needs a renewal? Top 3. I'll give you the top 3 right now. Nissan, and Nissan. Okay, Nissan Infiniti and Nissan. Infiniti, Nissan, though, yeah, like yesterday. Their infotainment system really needs, and it's got to do with the screen definition. It's just the cameras, and they really need to do something with that in a hurry. I own a 2016 Range Rover Sport Supercharged V8. I want to get a 19 or 18 Mercedes-Benz E400 Coupe. What do you think? Big move. We don't care about the roomies, I guess, of the room. Well, why not? If that's what you want. You want to get rid of the big supercharged V8? you'll miss the noise, you'll miss the power. Yeah, the Mercedes E-Class Coupe's a very pretty car. So yeah, why not? Nothing wrong with that. What are your thoughts on the new Ridgeline? The new Ridgeline, like the old Ridgeline, it's the white collar pickup truck is what I call it. It's for the guy who wants to go to the gardening store on the weekend or do a little lumber run, take stuff to the dump. It's not really a pickup truck. It's not a pickup truck guy's pickup truck. And the bed isn't as big as I had hoped, but yeah, it does everything fine. What's your opinion on models in the car business? Are they hot enough? I think you're talking about the women at auto shows. That's disappearing fast, by the way. And there's a lot of people would be happy to see, the women that leave the auto industry when it comes to, just being there for a little TNA. I still appreciate it, but I can see that people don't like it. Hey, love the show. Do you have any news on the new Kia Forte 5? So the Kia Forte I drove recently. There's a video on that. Surprisingly good. I think that it's going to sell quite well, even though the market is shrinking for compact cars. So look at the Hyundai cousin, the Elantra or the Elantra in the US, the GT, the hatchback. Kind of look to that to see what we're going to get with the Forte 5. Apparently, it's not going to be called Forte 5 any longer. It's probably going to have the GT moniker, and GT in the Kia lineup is the sporty, like you see that with the Stinger GT. GT is going to be more prominent in the Kia family. So I think that you're going to see the Kia Forte GT is what it's going to be called, which will be the hatchback. So yes, so the sedan has come. Expect the hatch to be not that far behind, probably within the year. This is a good question. Hey, Zach, aside from now, when is a good time to buy 2018 next year? Any noteworthy holiday sales events to look out for? Okay, this is a perfect time to bring in our sponsor for the channel, which is Car Cost Canada. And this is a perfect example. Right now, we're heading towards, within 2 weeks, a new calendar year. So all of the 18 stock that's sitting on dealers' lots is now 1 year old, okay? So psychologically and in reality, it's a year-old vehicle, and because of that, they have to discount the models. So if you're looking for a car, now is a good time to do it. Now, what happens is that a lot of the vehicles that everybody wants, they get cherry-picked out pretty quick. And then you are left a lot of times with the more expensive models because people maybe aren't shopping for the, say, the top trim, or you might not get the color you want or the color combination you want. So the longer you wait, there might be better incentives, but the selection is smaller, okay? Layer on top of that, anytime there's a brand new model. So I'll use the RAV4 as a perfect example. RAV4 is heading to dealers right now. The trucks are arriving, they're getting dropped off at the dealerships. So 2018 Toyota RAV4 is a perfect example of a vehicle that there will be discounts on the car and you're going to be able to get a good deal. Not only because it's coming up to the end of a year, but also because there's a brand new model coming. That's when you get the sweetest time, okay? So what I suggest you do is go to Car Cost Canada. The first search is absolutely free, and what you get is exactly in the name. Car cost, the cost of the car that the dealer paid for. That's very powerful information. So if you're going into a Toyota store, we'll use that as an example because it's the one I brought up, and you've looked it up, you're going to find out what the dealer paid for that Toyota RAV4 XLE. You're going to find out what incentives there are, and there will be incentives on the car because it's going out. Any kind of additional rebates like reduced interest rates, any kind of specials like if you're a first-time buyer, a college grad, or a veteran, or a senior, there's some extras there. And often there are hidden rebates between the dealers and the manufacturer that you're not aware of. So you'll actually find that information there. And this applies for every brand. So yeah, this is a great time to be shopping for a car. Now, if you wait a month, in January of 2019 now these cars, they're really starting to want to move them. And every single month, there's new rebates and incentives. So this is the time to buy. Somebody said, thank you for stating that the world is metric. Yes, because it's true. Hey, Zach, is the VW Golf to get a 6-speed manual anytime soon? I would say yes, because I would check that. I would check that. The 2019, because the 2019 gets the 1.4 liter turbo. The 1.8 is no longer the base engine. They've gone to the 1.4. Now, I don't know if it's 100% correct, but I would check. It's worth looking at, because the Jetta has the same engine, and the Jetta has a 6-speed manual now. So I would check, because the same engine transmission combo should be in both. But yeah, as we go into the new Jetta in the next year or so, we'll probably be getting a manual, the 6-speed for sure. Josh says, hey Zach, asking again because it was skipped last week. My dad had bad luck with his Range Rover Sport diesel in Quebec. Diesel got so expensive. Same situation in BC. I'm really surprised about that, and it could be a short-term thing, because we had the same experience here in British Columbia. Diesel was more expensive than gasoline, but it only lasted for about a week. And now it's the same price, and often it's cheaper. I've owned a diesel vehicle now for 4 years, and this is the only time I can remember that we've ever had diesel that's more expensive. Now, here's the thing to think about, and this is what you need to say to your dad. Okay? Range Rover diesel, Range Rover gasoline version. This uses premium fuel, so that's now 10 cents more per liter, at least. In some places, it's more than that. So even if this is the same price as premium fuel, the diesel still goes about 25 to 30% farther than the gasoline equivalent. So it's not the same price, okay? So yeah, you look at regular gasoline, say it's $1.10 a liter, and you look at diesel, say it's $1.20 a liter. So you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, it's 10 cents a liter more. No, you have to look at what it would cost for premium fuel, and then you have to factor in the 20 to 30% less fuel that you're using. So it isn't more expensive in the long run. Trust me. Tell them to enjoy the vehicle. It's a great vehicle. The diesel Sport in the Range Rover is fantastic. Peter Norris. Really enjoy all of the Facebook articles. Do you think more automakers will adopt over-the-air updates as regular features? Heard that VW plans to have over-the updates in all their AVs. Okay, so a little plug for the Facebook page. So type into Facebook Motormouth and you'll find the page there, and like it. Because as Peter is mentioning, I find articles that I have in my searches and I post them on Facebook, and there's become a good sort of community of people that are commenting and arguing, because that's always fun, about, you know, EVs seem to be the hot one. People are for and against rebates, things like that. So if you like car information, car news, some car culture, and some stupid videos I put on there too, then go to Facebook and like the Motormouth page. Now back to your question. Are more car companies going to do over-the-air updates? Absolutely. The connected car is here. So the Volkswagen Group, like for all the Audi cars now, all connected. Porsche, all connected. Volkswagens are all going to be connected. So yes, there's going to be able to do a certain amount of updating over the air. For some things, I would think that they still want you to go to the dealer to get checked out. But yeah, that horse has left the barn, for sure. Syed says, a big fan of your channel from Algeria. My question, a CX-9 or a Santa Fe XL, which one would you pick? Well, if you're not in a rush, Santa Fe XL this is in its last year. So you're going to have a new one coming, okay? So if you're not in a rush, wait for the new. What's it called again? Somebody might want to type in below. I'm trying to remember the name. It's got an interesting name. They just showed it at the LA Auto Show. So if you're not in a rush for that. Now, the one thing I will say about the Mazda CX-9 is that it's definitely one of the best looking utilities on the road. It's definitely one of the best, if not the best, interior of a non-premium brand on the road. However, it isn't the best when it comes to space. So if you need space, the Santa Fe might be the way to go. If you need, you need those 7 seats occasionally, then the Mazda is pretty hard to beat. Plus, the the turbocharged 4-cylinder and the CX-9 is a wonder. The bottom end torque is miraculous. All right, we got a top chat here. Got a 2018 A5 Sportback, and to say, would you say it will last a while without any headaches? Love the car. It's not a lease, by the way. Thank you. That's from Mario PL. Well, I would say, yeah, if you maintain the car and look after it and get it serviced regularly, you should have no problems. I had an Audi A7, just the bigger brother to the A5 Sportback. And we had it for almost 4 years. And we had like, what did we have happen to it? When the car was a few months old, the reversing camera flickered a little bit, so they changed that. And then, you know, the light bar goes across the back. One of the little bulbs was out. They changed that. That was it. Other than that, nothing. The car worked flawlessly. So yeah, I think that the Audi part of the Volkswagen group, the quality is fantastic. And I have to say I've had zero issues with ours. And Volkswagen group, generally, the quality is coming up. Volkswagen as a brand, a sub-brand, is a little bit below. But you look at Porsche, you look at Audi, their quality is fantastic. And in first-hand experience using these vehicles, I would say, yeah, if you look after the car and maintain it, you should be able to run it for a long, long time. Elizabeth Long says hello. Elizabeth, I always joke. Welcome to the house full of dudes, Elizabeth. Good that you're here. All right, Van City 604 wrote back and said, BMW, not BME. Sorry, I have fat fingers. I got a fat head, but what are you going to do? So I think your question was about you're seeing more BMW plug-in electric vehicles. If you look at the actual numbers, the numbers are really quite small for all electric vehicles. And here's the thing is, when you see, and you live in certain neighborhoods, you see more electric cars. You see in more affluent neighborhoods, obviously more Teslas, because I've said it many times before, it's a status symbol for a lot of people, okay? These things are expensive. And who owns expensive vehicles? People who like to show off that they have money. So yeah, you get away from those neighborhoods and you go to where normal people live, out in the suburbs that have to drive a long distance in and out every day. You don't see them as much. So yeah, I don't think there's a huge spike in electric cars in the last little while. And when you look at the actual numbers now that, say, for areas where the electric car rebate has ended, it's going to be interesting to watch. Comet73 says, hey, Zach, I have a low kilometer 96 Taurus SHO. Cool car with the Yamaha V6. What are your thoughts on the new twin turbo Taurus SHO? Well, you have the one. You got the one. That is the collectible. You know that, though. If you've got the original Taurus SHO, I never liked when they called it the Taurus SHO because SHO stand for super high output. And a lot of people, you obviously know this, the original Taurus SHO had the Yamaha engine. Now that is a thing of beauty, especially with the manual transmission. So yeah, the twin turbo Taurus SHO, that is basically a turbo, that's like the EcoBoost engine. Really nothing that... you know, like you look at the Raptor and the Ford line with the high output twin turbo V6 EcoBoost engine. So that's the way it's going with the Ford products, but stick with your original, man. You got an original. Hey, Zach, Acura TLX, Acura ILX or similar car around this price point for lease. Yeah, why not? I prefer the ILX to the TLX. It's not as, I mean, the TLX is available with the V6. So if you really want to get a V6, that's the way to go. If you just want to have a really small, fun, nimble little car with a dual clutch transmission, I drove the ILX and I don't know if you saw the review of it, but go back and watch the review. It's so much fun. It's a great little car and it really matches up well with the SI from Civic, okay? So basically both have 200 horsepower. One is built on an older Honda platform. Of course, the SI is built on the new Honda platform, but one is only available with a manual transmission. So if you don't drive your own gears or you don't want to, the dual clutch in the ILX is a really compelling package. It's a fun car to drive. I really did enjoy driving it. So take it out for a drive. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. So you put it into drive, go one more and put it into S, into sport, then you're having some fun, my friend. Mario Lopez, with all the new safety technologies available, do you think auto insurance companies will reduce insurance rates costs on these vehicles? I did an interview for my radio show. I have a radio show here every week on B&M Bloomberg 1410 in Vancouver. I had somebody on from the Insurance Bureau, I think it's called, and I asked that same question. And they didn't really have an answer yet, but yeah, I think we're going to hopefully start to see some improvement in the costs of claims with less fender benders. However, the cars that do get into accidents, there are so many more sensors, cameras, and things on cars that the cost to repair them goes up. So I think with all of the technology that's in cars, with all of the very expensive things like LED headlamps, and all of the sensors that are in cars and all of that stuff needs to be repaired, makes it much more expensive to fix. So yes, there could be a reduction in the number of accidents, low speed accidents, fender benders, those sorts of things. But the bigger ones, excuse me, are going to be more expensive to fix. So we'll have to wait and see. I would hope that they would give rebates to people that have the newest, latest technology. I also asked about, will you be giving rebates to people that have dash cameras? Because then you've got much more information. And I think the insurance industry is slow to move on all of these things because they don't want to set precedent, right? They don't want to reduce rates. They want to keep rates high to cover their costs and to make money. They're in the business to make money. Adam G, great live show. Thank you for answering my message I recently sent about DSG transmissions. So that's another thing. I don't want a gajillion emails, but if you have a real pressing question, you can go to my website, which is really easy to remember. It's motormouth.ca, and you can get a message through. Also, if you go to Instagram, and you can follow along there, and I encourage you to do that. So Instagram_auto, you can also do direct messages there. So, I don't want to be answering questions all night and day, but I do get back to you when I do have time. Wasif 9 from Windsor, Ontario. Hello back to you. I'm going to be in Detroit for the auto show, so just across the river in about a month. Mark Dion. Hey Zach, why is it so hard for some people to admit that people buy a car for heritage and brand association? Of course that is a factor. Absolutely. Like, what makes a luxury car? I'm telling you, I could blindfold most people and put them in $30,000 Kia with heated, ventilated seats, backup camera, navigation, panoramic roof, LED headlamps, all of that stuff. So you can get that in anything these days. So what makes it luxury? What makes it luxury is heritage. Mercedes-Benz, BMW, they've been doing it a long, long time. Look how hard it is for brands that enter into the luxury space to try and get anywhere. Look at look at the struggles that brands like Infiniti have had, Acura has had over the decades. One brand that's been successful at it when they introduced in the late 80s is Lexus, because they stayed the course. And that's the issue Genesis is going to have. Genesis makes great cars, but they don't have any heritage. So yeah, why do people buy a Rolex watch when they have the time on their phone? It's heritage, it's prestige, that's all of that. The whole world is built on that. People aspire to have something. When you reach a certain point in your life, you want to have a car that lets everybody know, you're not a 21-year-old college student living in someone's basement. You actually have succeeded at something. You have something you want to show people. That's the way it goes. And is it going to be a Genesis or is it going to be an Audi? Is it going to be a Genesis or is it going to be a BMW? Well, most people will gravitate towards their traditional brands. It's just the way it is. Richard McFarland, finally I get to be part of this. Hey, thanks for being here. Watched you for years and years, way back, mind you, and your usual time is during our family dinner. I get it. Just wanted to say hi and keep up the good work. I understand that. Hey, I got a question for you. What works better for you, Sundays at this time or Mondays? The reason I started doing it on Mondays, the reason I moved it to Sunday is because I travel so much and often during the week I'm not here. So that's why I moved it to Sunday. But, I could do both. I mean, I'm not saying twice, but if I'm here on Mondays, I could do it on Mondays, and when I'm leaving on a Monday, I could do it on a Sunday. Does that make sense? Tell me below. Which do you prefer, a Monday or a Sunday? Pablo says, can you tell Trudeau about BC cost? He seems he doesn't understand. So earlier in the chat, we're talking about the carbon tax. In British Columbia, we've had a carbon tax for a better part of 10 years. First jurisdiction in North America to have a carbon tax. Cost of living here is outrageously expensive. If you live in the United States and you want to get sticker shock, do yourself a favor or don't do yourself a favor and come to British Columbia. Everything in British Columbia is so goddamn expensive. And layering on a carbon tax doesn't make it any better. And I have no problem with taking a tax and putting it towards the intended goal. So if you're going to have a carbon tax, take all the money and put it into building more transit, building, whatever, what's going to make things greener. But don't just take the money and stick it into the general revenue of the government, which is exactly what I call the Green DP did here in British Columbia. They took all the money and they just dump it into general revenue. So all it is a tax. It's not going to the intended use. So I would love for them, if they're going to put carbon tax on our fuel, on our electricity, on our home heating, build more subways. That's what they should do, period. They should just focus on transit, build more transit. Mackie G, love your channel. Bought a Kia Stinger GT, limited back in November. Hands down, so far, the best vehicle. Picks up when needed, and the hatch is amazing for space. Well, there you go. I think the Stinger is a great car. And, when I did the review of the Stinger, I mentioned, because it was done over a year ago, I said I owned an Audi A7. And somebody's like, dude, how many times do you have to say you own an Audi A7? It's like, hello, moron, because it's the closest competitor to the Stinger GT is an Audi A7, roughly the same size. Both have a big hatchback. Even the layout of the interior is kind of similar. So that's why. And you know what? As somebody who has owned an A7 and driving the GT, now you understand why that A7 is popular, because it gives you the size of a large car, the handling of a sedan, but all of the functionality. You open that big tailgate, man, it's huge in there. So you can have a sporty sedan and you can have the utility of an SUV with the big cargo area. I totally get why you got the Stinger GT, and it is a wonderful car, and it's a great engine. So good for you. Do you think Audi Q7 2015 is a good used SUV to buy and long-term reliability? Same thing I said earlier. It's now almost a 4-year-old car. So what you want to do is see if you can get what's called a certified pre-owned. So one that's come back maybe off lease, and now you get the extended 2-year warranty from Audi. You can buy an extended warranty, but please, please, please have the vehicle inspected by an independent mechanic. When you're buying any used car, you want to do a Carfax as well. You are buying the previous owner's dedication to maintenance, and whether they beat the crap out of it, to be honest with you. So you want to get one that's in good condition and get it inspected by a mechanic. And if you're worried about it, then get the long-term, I always like to say, if you own a German car, it's better to own it under warranty. So now that it's 4 years old, try and get an extended warranty. But the Q7 is a fine product. You should have no problem. It's got that 333 horsepower, supercharged 6-cylinder, and it's a great engine, and it's a fun vehicle to own as well. Parm says, hey Zach, what are your thoughts on the Toyota Venza? How easily would it be to get parts available? Do you think it's something from Toyota in the near future? It's interesting, Parm, because I was at the launch of the Camry, the current Camry, the one that just came out last summer, at Prince Edward Island, and the PEI, we were there, and we had the chief engineer. At the end of the night, I said, hey, let's go for a beer. We sat at the bar. He sat next to me. We had a beer, and he talked to me a lot about stuff. And I said to him, listen, you make the Venza, put a little bit more cladding on it, and raise up the suspension a little bit, make it look more like an SUV. Boom, you got a hit. And he goes, oh. He wouldn't say to me whether they were going to do it or not. But I think the Venza is a great product. It's huge inside. But it has all of the attributes we just talked about with the Stinger GT. It's got car-like handling. It's got tons of space. It's got a big hatch. It's very roomy. It's not the same kind of handling as the Stinger, but you get the idea. It's a little bit more car-like. It's somewhere in the middle. No problem getting parts for it because it has a lot of shared components with the Highlander, the Camry, and the Sienna van, all based on the same platform, okay? So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Are they going to come up with something again? Well, maybe. But it won't be called Venza. I said to them, look at the Subaru Outback. Look what they've been able to do with basically a station wagon. You should do a new version of the Venza and Outback it. We'll have to wait and see. Dan says, Dan Reader, real estate. So obviously the realtor. Hey Zach, I'm currently cross-shopping Acura RDX with the GLC 300 and the 2019 X3. Like the style of the Acura, and I'm influenced by the price. Oh, and what watch is that? Oh, okay. This is my Tudor Submariner from 1995 with the Mercedes hands on it. Here, I'll do a little close-up. Can you see that? Can you see that? Maybe not. Oh, before I answer your question, for those that are this long into the thing, I do have another channel. It's called Watch This. And when this live show is done, I will put the link below, and I'd love for you to go over there and subscribe to that. I review watches and talk about watches. If you're interested in watches, that's a fun channel. It has about 3,500 subs, so I'd love for you to, pardon the pun, get it, sub. Anyway, back to your question. So it's a Tudor sub. Acura RDX, GLC 300, and 19 X3. All of these are fantastic choices. X3, RDX are the newest. The GLC's been out for 2 or 3 years now. GLC is a fantastic product. 9-speed automatic in that makes all the difference in the world. The new X3 I liked. I didn't find the 2-liter turbocharged engine that much. It was okay in the city. It was actually very good in the city. It just didn't have a lot of punch on the highway. Now, I think the best value, and I think it's going to be an absolute monster, is the RDX. Considering what you get for the price. Now, yes, they pushed the price up from the previous version, for sure. It's quite a bit more expensive than the previous version. But you start to look at the top level RDX, kind of is where these other German brands start. So if it's a value play, RDX all the way. Here's the other thing. You're in real estate. I always say the perfect brand for a real estate agent is an Acura. It shows that you're successful, but you're not a douchebag. You know what I mean? You show up in a big Range Rover, you're like, hey, look at me, look at me. You don't want to be shown to be too successful. You still want to be shown as hungry and a man of the people. But yeah, an RDX is a great proposition. Do yourself a favor. This is a great, not on the weekend because that's when you have open houses. Do yourself a favor and drive all of these vehicles. Take one day and drive all 3. You cannot go wrong with any of them. They're all fantastic choices. All right. So I'm just going to read the bottom ones here because I asked, Palisades is the redesign of the Santa Fe. Okay, so most people say Sunday is the best, Sunday is the best, Sunday is the best. So I think we'll stick with Sunday, and I will do the Monday if I can't do it on the Sunday, okay? So Mario says, thank you for the answer. Really appreciate that. Will make me sleep better at night. There you go. I'm here to help. So I hope that you enjoyed it. We're getting very close to Christmas now. And so as I said, my intention is to be here next Sunday. There might be a party or something I got to go to, which I don't mind going to because I like eating and drinking. But if that's the case, I might not be here next Sunday. And then the Monday's Christmas Eve, so I'm certainly not going to be here. And then the following week, we're getting close to New Year's. So my goal is to be here. So I'll do it if I can. If not, I'm eating and drinking. That's what I'm doing. But I'm not eating and drinking and driving because don't do that. So that's all the time. Once again, Facebook is Motormouth. Like that for all the news stories. Instagram is Motormouth_auto. You can direct message me there if you have a question, and also the pictures. And what's the other one? Oh yeah, the watch channel is called Watch This, and I'll put the link below. That's all the time. Thanks everybody. Can you tell I'm in a good mood? Because we're heading into the holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.